There's a lot of confusion about the High Evolutionary. He's a 45 shard unlock, and we cannot use power cores to leverage and get that unlock in advance. Some people believe that this is new, that this is unprecedented, that it hasn't happened before. Well, I got news for you. It happened very, very recently. In fact, there's another character who had an interesting release method that we could not use power cores, and that character, I think, is showing us what is to come in Marvel Strike Force's future. Let's quickly take a look. The character in question is Eclipse. And as you can see here, this is the Eclipse from my new player account. And down there in the lower right-hand corner, you see that she is a 1-star unlock. She only needed 15 shards for us to unlock the character. And what team is she on? She's on the Daring Warriors. The Daring Warriors were the recent team to come out, right? They're still haven't had their free-to-play release. They were the team that came out right before the Shadow Conclave. So we had a character that, once again, we could not use power cores for, and we could even, depending on where we were in the meta, get them at a relatively low star unlock method. So why is Scopely doing this? I'm 100% positive they're experimenting. They're trying to figure out what it is that the community will tolerate, for lack of a better word. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's the only word that comes to mind right now. They're just trying to see, like, hey, what is it that we could do to make unlocks a little bit different, a little more interesting, and make them more high stakes? And the Daring Warrior team embodies that experiment. Let me explain what I think is going on. The Daring Warriors are a Cosmic Crucible team. Cosmic Crucible is the most popular game mode in Marvel Strike Force, right? Maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but overall, throughout the community, Cosmic Crucible is the most popular. And the Daring Warriors are the newest Cosmic Crucible team, so by default, they are the strongest vanilla Cosmic Crucible team in the game at present. And so what was on the line was unlocking that character, Eclipse, right? So what does Eclipse represent? What is the experiment all about? Well, it's actually very, very simple. Eclipse represents a legendary character, right? I think what's happening here, this is testing ground for different avenues of introducing legendary characters into Marvel Strike Force. They got to go away from what they did with Quasar and Blastar because they're just simply not making any money with that style. So there's going to be some type of return or maybe a hybrid method when it comes to unlocking legendary characters in the future. And I think the experiment started here with Eclipse, right? Again, she's a Cosmic Crucible character. She's a Marvel Strike Force original character, so we knew she was going to be strong. And they even sweetened the deal with the event by throwing in some extra Maestro shards. Perhaps you forgot, remember there was an event and we were able to get a little bit more extra Maestro shards early before Battle World even came into the game. Now, what is it exactly that they're testing out? Again, I think they're testing out kind of in a no harm, no foul way what style of legendary unlock would work best for the community. Again, maybe even trying different methods, maybe some type of a hybrid method. See, what we have here in the event screen, this is again a baby account, so I have available all of the older legendary character unlocks. So right quick, let's just go right there with the Black and Ebony with the Ebony Maw shards. So here we are in the Black and Ebony event, and we'll be getting Ebony Maw as a legendary character. He's old. This is not something that I want you to do. This is just how far we got using the characters that we had. We're just getting the resources to put into that account. This is my new player account. We stopped there at tier number 4. Now, why did we stop? It's because we don't meet the requirements for tier 5. So we'll take a look at that. And this is going to give us an idea of what's going on, right? So back in the day, right? This is the old school unlock. Back in the day, we had to build the required team. So in this case, it says Inhuman or Bio Hero at 5 stars. So it gave you what you had to do. Your characters had to be at that benchmark to unlock the legendary character. This was how we did it way back in the day, early in the beginning of Marvel Strike Force. If anybody has been around since the beginning, you remember that this is how we used to unlock legendary characters. And they would, again, maybe pigeonhole certain things. Like you said, Bio Hero there. Mystic Controller was one, and you would just simply have to have the name team or characters that fit in those things at that required star level, right? You had to meet those benchmarks in order to unlock the node here. You would play the little bit of content. Sometimes it would be hard. Sometimes it would be just a check and you get it done. But that's what you had to do in order to unlock the character. And we can definitely see some parallels when we look at how Eclipse was unlocked, right? So we have Eclipse lost and Eclipse found. What are the requirements for unlocking, getting stars and red stars on Eclipse? So on our Eclipse lost tab here, this would just be the unlock and getting those yellow stars. We made it up to number 5 and we stopped and didn't proceed any further at number 6. Why is that? Well, again, if we look at the requirements, what do we see? It wants 5 Winter Guard or champions. You can mix and match, right? You can mix and match. You need a total of 5 characters and they need to be at gear tier 20, level 108. Now, for us on the free to play side, level 108 is outside of what I was going to do. I wasn't going to bring either of those teammates up past 105. I can get the gear tier 20, at least on some of them. And again, we mixed and matched, made a makeshift team, and that's what we did. And I think there's a lot of people on the free to play side who did exactly that. If you wanted to go to the next step, you're starting to get into spender territory that you had to take your characters up to level 108 and then level 110, which is definitely outside of free to play territory. You don't have enough stuff to get 5 characters up to level 110. So that we go from free to play territory into light spender territory into a little bit more spender territory. And so because of that, we got a different size Eclipse than other people who did more than we did. Then if we switch over to the Eclipse found section, right, we start to get a little bit more into the breakpoints of the community. So again, same thing, we made it to number 5. What do we need to get through number 6? Well, it says we need 5 champions and they have to be the champion characters. You can no longer mix or match. You have to have 5 of the champion characters at purple 4 and level 110. So again, that breaks the free to play mindset. You cannot bring 5 champion characters up to level 110 unless you're spending money. Purple 4, we could probably do that. That's not outside the question, but it's just physically impossible to bring the characters up to 110 unless we're spending some type of money. There's the Winter Guard, has the same requirements. And finally, the end requirement there, you would need to bring them to purple 5. Now, purple 5 is a big spender step, right? So most of us are not going to be putting purple 5 on our characters until we pick the proper ones in order to get Blue Marvel, right? If we're post Blue Marvel, people that already have them, maybe they can do what they want in that regard, right? They have some flexibility to move around, but those of us who are more on the free and cheap to play, we do not have the resource to do that. So what we're seeing throughout here is a different gamut, right? Between our free to play, our spenders, and we saw even on the new player, right? Even on a new player side, I was able to still get the character unlocked. Again, in my opinion, I think what's happening is they're trying to test out how the community will feel about all this, right? We have as a reward with a special character on a Cosmic Crucible team, which is the most sought after team by the majority of the community. And to do that, you have to build other teams. For example, we have the Winter Guard here, right? Winter Guard, this was one of the teams that was mentioned. So here's my Winter Guard on my endgame account, right? This is what we have. I think this is kind of reasonable. I want to know if you have something similar to this. Are you stronger? Are you weaker? But I think, again, for people that just been playing, what we're looking at here is kind of reasonable, and they gave us a reward for that. Now, we know that there's a lot of people that may not be overly excited about Alliance War. There's some people that's just not their cup of tea. For me, I enjoy Alliance War, so I didn't have a problem building the Winter Guard team. But the next mental breakpoint is here when we're talking about the champions. The champions are a raid team. So for most of the time, especially for the cheap to play people, you're being told don't build your raid teams beyond what's necessary. So what I have here for my champions is a lot stronger than what is needed to get through the raids, right? I'm an individual that disagrees with that, right? I disagree with that a lot because our raid teams end up being that tier 2 team outside of their game mode. Right? So if you're playing Alliance War teams are the best. And then the next bracket of teams after you use up your war teams or your raid teams, they're really good. Same thing with Crucible. Crucible teams first. The next bracket is your raid teams. That's just the information that I follow. Everybody's different. So I didn't have a problem bringing these guys up, but some people did. And again, that's why I think that they put those requirements there on purpose just to see, well, what would the community actually do? How would it change the way different people play the game? Would it change the way they spent? Will it change how they invest? Would it change, which team that they invested more into. If they were only going to pick one, you still got a reward, did we not? We still got a reward if we just picked one team and invested into that. It just wouldn't be the same as if we invested into both teams. And so the reason why I think they're doing this is they're testing another metric as well, right? They're testing the last way that we were able to get through our legendary unlocks, and that was the scourge system. We're just going to do a little experiment here. We're going to click on rogue with famine. Some of us, we might not remember how these other legendary unlocks worked, right? Before the blast star and the quasar, stuff like that, the way that you had to do things is the different nodes would have requirements. So in this case, we see that there's a city requirement. That itself isn't too difficult. And you would have, again, different combinations of characters and things that you were allowed to use. But at some point, you had to use the name teams. Now, for these older Age of Apocalypse type scourges, they've added a couple teams over time. But in the past, there used to only be 2 teams there in that requirement. That's how it worked. You had 2 teams, they were named, and you had to have them in order to punch through this particular node. So throughout the scourge, it would be somewhere between 2 to 4 nodes where you had to have the named team, and they picked 2, just like in the case that we're seeing with the champions and the Winter Guard. As we saw, by investing in both teams, that's what helped you to get the biggest reward. Although you did, right, you still were able to unlock the character and make progress, get some power on her, even if you only used one of the teams, right? So I think, again, that was part of the experiment. Once again, what would people do? Would they invest in both? Would they invest in one? And there's a reward either way. Again, there's no harm, no foul. If the experiment doesn't work, we're all still probably walking away with this character in one way, shape, or another. Now, there is another very, very interesting point that we don't want to overlook. So again, we're looking here at the Daring Warrior team as a whole. And one of the things I want you to notice is that Eclipse, we have her unlocked once again at 5 stars. I am a free-to-play player, and right, most of the time, we're not going to unlock a new character at 5 stars, right? Especially in the past, right? We're using power cores. That's what I did with Night Thrasher and Speedball. So note there that they are 3 stars, right? We got them at 3 stars. And as the team comes into its free-to-play unlock, we're going to get more stars on those characters. But here is the interesting thing. If I don't put any more power into those other teams, my Eclipse will not grow. She will remain at 5 stars. And I got to be honest, at this point in my adventure, I'm not planning on going back and putting more power into the Winter Guard or the champions. I'm still moving forward as a free-to-play player and will be focusing on the Shadow Conclave. So my Eclipse, once again, will stay just like that. And I think, again, this is something that they want people to kind of look at and see how they might feel about it. I really, really think that Eclipse, she's a good character. This team is a good team, but I think that what she's representing is also the next series of legendary characters. If we're playing free to play, that might be what happens. We build our initial wave, we build our initial roster, we go in, we get some version of the character, and it depends on where it is in the team's release cycle, right? If the team is still being built, maybe the next time the character comes around, our teams are stronger and we get a stronger version of the character. But at a certain point, we probably will have moved past it. And if we didn't build our teams to the absolute maximum, maybe we don't get an absolute maximum version of that legendary character. Again, this is a calling back to how it used to be in the past. Just to demonstrate the point, let's take a look at the legendary characters that I have already unlocked. So even with the latest ones that just came out, I don't have that last red star on Thunderstrike. I didn't build up all the teams to the maximum to be able to get through to get all the red stars. I'll see what I can do as with what we got coming out now, but I'm not going to put more power into the teams in order to get that red star. If I really wanted to, right? And if it were a different type of player, right? If I was a different person and I really wanted that, I would have the opportunity to do it. But it's not what I want to go after. So as you see, I really don't have him all the way maxed out. I'm missing 1 red star. And it's not just with Thunderstrike. So here we are with the Shadow King. And again, I have him at 6 stars. I can't remember what the input was. I wasn't going to build whatever the team I needed to push him up to that next star level. And so I walk away with a 6 star instead of a 7. We can keep rewinding the clock back. Here's Black Cat. I have her at 5 red. I don't have her at 6 red, and I don't even have that 7th star filled in. Okay. The team still worked fine for me where I was at in the game. But what was awesome about the way that they had done those unlocks is you generally speaking, especially on the older ones, especially with the Age of Apocalypse one, you felt the difference between those stars. A 5-star character with reds and a 6-star character with reds, they were two different characters. They were two different characters. They definitely hit different. And so you felt the result of that investment. And it's possible that we're going back to that kind of a thing. I really would like to hear what you think about this topic, right? I'm very, very curious, right? Do you think that we're heading back in that direction? How would you feel about, getting what you invested in? And so when we think about the Shadow Conclave and the High Evolutionary, again, I think this is going to be one of those things. If we're not able to build our High Evolutionary up at the same rate as a spender, then we have a weak point in our team. And as we saw, right, if we weren't reminded, those old school scourges, right, you're not just doing a node and beating 5 people on the other side of the board like you're doing in Alliance War. You're beating waves of characters. It can be 20 characters, 30 characters, and just over the course of that match during attrition, more than likely our weak character will get eroded. That's going to limit the strength of the legendary character that we would be able to get on the free-to-play side. I don't think they're going to lock us out, right? I prefer it this way, to be completely honest. I'd like to hear what you think about it. I prefer it this way, to be completely honest. If I'm an engaged player, I'm playing the game, I probably will still get to unlock that legendary character, but the character that I get will not be at the same strength as a person who spent money and powered up their teams early. I think that's what they're going for. I think that's what the plan is. And right now, I want to hear what you think. So again, 45 shard unlock character. They're not pulling the rug out from under us. This is things that has already happened in the game before, and it usually shows the direction that we're heading. So as always, I'm really interested to hear your comments. I want to know what you think. If you haven't seen these videos, please check them out. They're legit.